Welcome to the Degrees of Maternity podcast, your real dose of truth for the content creator. Episode 7 comes from the Blogging Truths Be Told series entitled, You Can't Always Judge a Book by Its Part 2. In the last Blogging Truths Be Told episode, I indicated that I would probably have to cave in and look into some of the surface stuff when it comes to a blog site's exterior, because that's what many people tend to gravitate toward when initially looking for a blog site to peruse. And I have to be sensitive to that fact. So let's go right ahead and continue this second installment with my pain points, shall we? Because as I've stated time and time again, growing pains will come when you deal with new processes. They just will. They're part of the thing called real life as we know it. And I, personally, don't know of anyone who went through some type of growth process without any growing pains involved. Speaking of growth, I just have to pause here for a moment and bring out an excerpt from my self published book, Playground Instruction for the Growing Adult. And no, this wasn't a planned plug for my book. It's just so profound how the book that I self published back in September of 2019 has come back to knock on my door and remind me to get things done and stop stalling on a process I know I need to take on, even though I'm dreading it. Here's that little written reminder from myself to myself, and others, of course, that I totally needed. Quote, while embracing life processes, there are going to be some tasks that we feel inept to perform or activities that take us far out of the safety zones we've created for ourselves. And that's okay. The comfortability factor needs to be challenged every once in a while. This phenomenon ultimately leads to growth, and growth is a good thing, folks. You have to be willing to inconvenience yourself for the process, realizing that discomfort is a residual side effect of growth. End quote. I go on to say, quote, grow where you are planted immediately takes me to a place of acknowledging the positives in challenging situations that present themselves to you. There's something empowering about the realization that there's always a lesson to learn and opportunities to grow, even in the most difficult or uncomfortable of circumstances. End quote. Growth is oftentimes uncomfortable. Me having to think about doing a revamping or at the least a noticeable touch up of the exterior pieces of my blog site is uncomfortable. I mean, you're talking about a non techie dealing in a technologically advanced online world. Hence, the reasoning for wanting to stay with the .com side of WordPress for now. I need the technology to be as user friendly as possible for a writer who really isn't into all the bells and whistles of the epidermis/dermis part of the blog anatomy, but is totally consumed with the guts and all the innards, aka the meaningfulness of the blog content. But here's what I've decided to do about this whole conundrum. I've decided that I'm going to take the next few months to make some changes to the blog site. You might call it a facelift of sorts. I'm not anticipating anything major. Actually, any changes I make to the outer appearance of the site will probably be major, no matter how small, considering my site has pretty much carried the same appearance since its inception in August of 2018. So I suppose it's time for a little updating to meet more of a reading audience's expectations. The reason I'm not making any surface changes right now is there's absolutely no earthly way I could do so. I'm not about to chase another shiny object in the long line of shiny objects that are out there for me to pursue. I'm only one person, and I pretty much have my hands completely full with blogging twice a week, the Dominators News newsletter, say that 5 times, for my email subscribers, marketing strategy planning, absorbing information from continuous learning opportunities, and creating educational products and incentives for young children. So, at the moment, I simply have no room to add any more shiny objects to chase after. Hmm, chasing the new shiny object. Sounds like a fitting topic for a future blogging Truths Be Told episode, doesn't it? Anyway, I intend to concentrate on that weighty laundry list of items that I just mentioned before perusing or pursuing anything new. But in a few months or so, it is on. And here's a brief but probable list of some of the blog site housekeeping and revamping items I will, more than likely, give some attention to. Number one, cleanup efforts to make sure my posts are cataloged in the appropriate categories. I've already started on this one, and I'll just keep continuously working on it. No, excuse me. Number two, the switching of my domain name to degreesofmaternity.com. Number three, an upgrade to the next plan as a WordPress.com user, which would be to the business plan. Number four, a change to the header and theme of my blog site. And number five, if you thought there was a fifth item, what were you thinking? All of the things that I've mentioned above, those surface items, are way more than enough new shiny objects to chase after in the next few months. More than enough. Now, item number two is going to be the doozy out of the bunch, because once I get that ball rolling, it's totally going to avalanche into a snow boulder of all the many places I need to update my website information. Guess I better start making a list of all those places to update now, so I'll be ready to make those necessary revisions in a few months or so. Conclusion. No, you can't always judge a book by its cover, outward appearance, first impression, etc. But most people do. And the sooner we realize this saying is just one of those truisms that's played out repeatedly in the blogosphere, the sooner we can get on board and adjust with the demands of those we're trying to attract with our online content.